Can you all hear me? You all hear me? Is the connection good? Okay. I'm just pulling up this stuff real quick. Okay, everybody, I'm Destiny. I'm gonna be the host for this evening. I'm gonna before I get into the interview, I'm actually gonna just give a few quick shout outs. First, I'd like to say that the new and final DewMore in the House poetry contest will be coming out next week. So for any youth poets seeing this, I suggest you enter it. There's prize money involved in all of that, and I believe you can win a prize just for entering. It's like a raffle, so definitely check that out next week when we post that. I also want to just say that on July 10th, SaltPepperCatchUp will be featuring the 2019 Youth Poet Ambassador, Anaya Taylor, and so I hope you all join us and tune in for that. Yeah, let me make sure that's everything. Oh, I got a pen. Okay. I think I handled everything so far. So, yeah, I'm just gonna hop right into it. Before I bring on our guest, I'm gonna just read his bio. Okay, so today I'm gonna be interviewing Jomon Hill. Jomon is a Kansas-raised and Birmingham-based poet, author, playwright, and professor. In 2017, Jahman authored his first book of poetry, Made from My Mother's Ceilings. In 2018, he claimed the title of third best slam poet in the world. And in 2019, he wrote, produced, and starred in an award-winning one-man show, Black Enough, which played off-Broadway. Creative at heart, his poetry videos have gained well over 3 million views online. Jomon also teaches at the University of Alabama, where he received his master's degree. He's educated, okay, in both communication studies and women's studies. His work centers around the flourish, or the idea that Black people are infinitely possible beings. A co-founder and co-executive director of the Flourish, Alabama, Jomon seeks to empower youth through collaborative arts education. So, without further ado, I'm gonna put in chat.
Hello.
Hey, hi. How are you?
I'm doing great. I'm on the road from Birmingham to Atlanta to surprise a friend for their birthday.
Oh,
So a lot of fun.
Oh,
yeah.
Nice friend. That's a drive.
Yep. Yeah, it's a couple hours. It's been It's been boring to say the least, but traffic in Atlanta is always interesting.
I was just saying, hopefully you got some road trip jams with you, having a little bop in the car. Speaking of jams, I don't know, we didn't really speak for that long, but I did come to Poetry University when you were in Baltimore, and you did basically we had like made a little playlist, and so you want to talk, while we're on the subject of music, you want to talk a little about that?
Yeah, one of my favorite workshops to put on is called Writing Joy, and the whole goal of it is to get us as poets used to creating art that is based out of happiness and joy, because a lot of times we write from pain, which is important and necessary, but we aren't often encouraged to write from a place of joy. So the whole concept of the workshop is we talk about a song that brings us joy, and we spend like an hour, like with all of the workshop here. Everybody talks about a song that brings them joy. We add it all to a playlist, and then we write about how that song makes us feel. And then we have a playlist at the end that we can always like bump. Like there are many times where I'm driving and I'll just go and put like Joy Exit 36 when I did it at the Exit 36 Poetry Festival, or Joy Baltimore, or Joy Teens Packed for whichever group I'm working with, and I have that playlist. That's a lot of fun. That I really enjoy it.
Oh yeah. It was really nice. You got to see all the different like types of music that people were listening to. I remember one girl, she played like a Russian song, and it kind of bumped. I'm not ready to lie. It was a little fire. I don't know what she was saying, but it was fire.
Exactly.
Yeah, so while we're on the subject of workshops and teaching, I'm going to ask, I know you started a nonprofit, The Flourish, and I just want to ask, like, well, for anyone who doesn't know, could you explain what that is and what that's about?
Yeah, so the Flourish Alabama, it's a nonprofit organization that, in essence, is dedicated to helping young artists bloom. So there's two major things that we do. First, we host events throughout the city of Birmingham that showcase young artists. And when we say artists, we're talking about poets, singers, comedians, visual artists. Our show called Flourish at the Freedom House, when you show up to it, like, you're bound to get any expression, all types of one of our favorite shows. We actually had dancers from Brazil and actors from Brazil come down and do traditional African dance, which was incredible. Like, it's a ton of fun. And somebody just got out of my car and closed the door all the way. There we go. But then we had the outreach side, and that's where we're doing in-school programming. We do collaborative art projects, and we want people to take like a multi-medium approach to art, because art isn't just sometimes it's one person, right? You make a show, it's just you and the mic, or just you and your paintbrush. But a lot of times when it comes to bringing it to life, it's important to work with a team of people and a team of artists to do what you want to do. And we facilitate projects that allow students to work in that capacity, like, say, a music video. So we help them write the song, learn how to, like, work with somebody else in the classroom who's doing video, and someone else in the classroom who does acting or choreography, and we put them all together to do this amazing project. And that's really our focus. We also do like poetry workshops and other sorts of arts workshops, one-off workshops, especially in the digital age, a lot of virtual stuff. But the Flourish Alabama, that's really what we're dedicated to. Collaborative arts. How can we collaborate with other, collaborate for our students, and then collaborate with other organizations to make it awesome programming?
I like that. That's what you all set out to do, because I think that really helps to build the community. And I think as artists, it's important to build the community with other artists, because it's just like you say, you can't. Sometimes it's a one man type of thing, but a lot of times it isn't. And so, to start from a young age, learning that and experiencing that is very important. So what is like? So okay, so you told me what it's about, but what like initially made you start this? Like, I know you. I mean, you've done a lot. So what would make you like? What made you specifically say this is what I need to do?
So like for me, how I got started doing what I needed to do, it was 2014, and I had just moved to Alabama to go to school, and my best friend at the time, Eric Marable Jr., I'll never forget, I did a lot of hip hop. I thought I was gonna be the next Lil Wayne. I was like, can't nobody touch me. And my homie Eric was like, yo, you should try writing poems. And I was like, all right, I'll try it. I'll try it a little bit. And I started writing. I performed in a couple of spaces. There was actually a protest movement on our campus, and I wrote about the racism at the University of Alabama, and I performed at the protest. And from there, I got really involved with the movement itself and the meetings with the administration, and really learning kind of that side of things, with combining art and activism, or like a lot of people would say artivism. And from there I was hooked on this idea of poetry as a catalyst for crucial conversations, for community growth. And I created an organization at the University of Alabama, along with a few others, called the Alabama Student Association for Poetry, or ASAP. And we put on events, and we did outreach. So we were hosting all these dope Black history events and other poetry events throughout the year. And we were working with the kids of single parent households, teaching them poetry. And I loved it. And then I graduated. So I was like, well, now we're gonna do this in Alabama. And ironically, the year I was graduating, I created a one-man show called Black Enough, and the theory behind the show was this concept that I call the flourish, or that Black people are infinitely possible beings. And I had moved to Birmingham, and Eric, my best friend who said I should write poetry, he was also in Birmingham, and he was doing a show at the Freedom House, and he didn't have a name for it. And a name that we came up with, I'll never forget, Alexis Simmons, our co-director, said when we did our first show off Broadway at Black Enough, she said, we should feature other artists before your one-man show, and we should call it The Flourish. And we were like, that's a dope idea, Alexis, we're going to do this. And then when Eric started doing his thing in Birmingham, he was like, listen, Jahman, The Flourish at the Freedom House has a ring to it. And I was like, it does. So let's do that. It's going to be The Flourish at the Freedom House. It's your baby. It's your thing. But I love the idea of The Flourish at the Freedom House. And then I was like, yo, we're about to turn this into something. The Flourish ain't going to stop here. Like, we're going to get into schools, and that's what we've been doing the past year, is developing programming, doing programming, and now we're doing the administrative work of developing, or of getting the 501c3, and all of the steps for that, for institutionalizing the organization. But yeah, it all started because my boy Eric. It's funny because he was there at the beginning of it, and now he's here now too, and we're working together on the Flourish. We're the co-EDs of the organization, and it's a ton of fun.
That's great. That's great. So okay, so I really, that's really cool. Like, yeah, well, one, it's good to have friends that will really stick throughout, and also just to have a friend that inspired you in that way, to the point of you might not have even did anything of like what you've been doing now if it wasn't for him. And so I think that's really amazing. But okay, so my last question about the Flourish is gonna be basically what is your biggest goal? Like, let's say I don't like to do years because who knows about the future, but in your mind, when you think of the Flourish, what is what is the main goal for you? What is the biggest, like, this is what I want to happen?
So our goals are huge. Okay, so first is We want the Flourish to be in cities across the country, major cities across the country. We're hoping that at the end of the school year, we have we're targeting, like right now, I believe there are 7 Birmingham City schools. We want to get in each one of those schools, do collaborative projects. We're going to set one project each year, so say everybody makes a music video. And then at the end of the year, there's a Flourish Fest where we showcase all of the high schools that participated in the program, and like we award scholarships to the winners. And that's our goal. We want to have those in every city, though. And then the other part is the Flourish as a production company or incubation company. We're trying to figure that out, where like artists want to do amazing projects, and we act as an entity that can help them get money for those projects. And they'll produce the projects under the Flourish. So it's like the next really dope and amazing black movie you see like years down the road will be produced by the Flourish Alabama, because we were like, yo, we believe in that vision, and we were able to like help them get the money they needed.
Definitely. I definitely think that will be reality, and I definitely want you to keep manifesting that. So you spoke a little bit about your college, and first of all, congrats on getting your master's and stuff. And
thank you.
Yeah, just doing what you're doing. But also, I did, so in your poem White Heaven, you talk about being at a PWI, and I just wanted to, if you could like go back in time or whatever, would you still choose to go to a PWI?
Yes, and every day, there's probably like 7 times a day where I'm like, dang, I should have went to a HBCU. And my friends, because there was an HBCU, I was originally going to go to an HBCU out of community college. I was going to go to Wiley College, and I remember a different Eric. There are now I'm realizing there are a few Erics in my life that have said monumental things to me. Another Eric, friend of mine named Eric, he was going to Wiley at the time, and he heard that I was potentially going to go to the University of Alabama. And he was like, go to Bama. Because of the rigorous schedule that they had being on speech and debate at Wiley College. But then I saw, 2 years later, they're all meeting Denzel Washington and stuff, because The Great Debaters was based out of Wiley College, and I'm like, I should have went. But at the same time, I don't know who I would have became. I didn't become a poet until I got to the University of Alabama. Like, none of that was ever a possibility or a thing on my radar until my friend at the University of Alabama said you should do poetry. So that sparked the development for my growth as a person and as a professional. So I wouldn't change it, because I'm glad where I'm at right now.
Yeah, I respect that. So especially like you went from Kansas to Alabama to go to a predominantly white school. I was like, that would scare me.
In my head, it was like, in my head, I thought that because I went to a school where there were 2 black kids in high school. So in my head, going to Alabama, I'm like, oh, it's about to be black. And I was actually shook. I was like, wait a second, where are all the black people at? And then once you find them, it's like, because it's 40,000 students and it's 13% black. So even still, there are more black people at the University of Alabama than there are in my hometown. So I'm like, still to me, I'm like, it's blackity black. Now I live in Birmingham, and it's for real black. I be surprised when I see. I'm like, I don't really see white people that often at all anymore. And I used to see them all the time, everywhere. And nowadays, when I get in a room with a majority white group, I get shook. I'm like, I'm in Birmingham. Like, where are the black folks at?
Well, yeah. So yeah, I guess that leads in. So I was thinking so since you did not only did you meet or did you meet Eric there, or did you already know each other?
So I met Eric at the University of Alabama. Technically, I met him 1 year before at a speech and debate tournament. The reason I chose Alabama is because all of my favorite black speech and debate heroes went to the University of Alabama. And I didn't meet any of them at the University of Alabama, unfortunately, because they had all graduated. But I had my friend Jamari, the one who I'm surprising for his birthday today. I met all of them, and they're like my core friend group now.
Yeah, that's just stuff. So, is there anything like as far as maybe like communications or just any skills that you think might not have developed as strong at HBCU? Because I know like when you're in a space, well, then again, you grew up around predominantly white. Because I was gonna say when you're in a
Mm-hmm.
that you like have to deal with certain people, you kind of like know how to. So I guess that doesn't. But scratch that.
I was gonna say I don't feel like skills. I feel like I could have developed all of. I feel like it really depends on the person. So because I haven't been to an HBCU like in the classroom, I can say that they have a better sense a lot of times of Black history. Even though within my niche of the University of Alabama, I was able to find that and carve that out for myself. But I feel like I would have had a better sense of that earlier at an HBCU. But I feel like there's nothing that a PWI is going to give you that an HBCU can't. That's just my personal opinion based off of the conversations I've had with friends who have gone to HBCUs.
Yeah. Well, actually, I do want to touch on in your school. So you said basically it was a protest addressing the racism at the school. So like exactly like is there anything you specifically remember like facing that was just like they would prompt like that necessarily like you want to like either shed light to or like think like all right in the future like this is what we know we got to stop allowing to happen in schools or not allowing because
I think that one of the things, and I don't know if it's necessarily like stop allowing it in the biggest thing that I faced personally was we made a list of demands. Our movement was called the We Are Done movement, and we had a list of demands that we made. And one of them was like changing the names of buildings on campuses because we had it like a lot of colleges. Now I feel like people are changing names, but it's very performative. And these days, a lot of what we consider, I call it like corporate activism, is very performative and isn't it's nothing for real. Yeah, it's like okay, now you want to change names and stuff, but you're not really doing anything to address the real issues on your campus. But that's okay. So the thing that we faced though was we made that demand for them to change the names on the campus, and the state of Alabama passed a law. I believe it was like within weeks. And it was put on, and the law was put on by the state senator, Gerald. I think his name was Gerald Allen of Tuscaloosa. He was the one who created the law called the Preservation Act that prevented state buildings, government buildings, from having their names changed. So like we didn't know that this happened until like a little while later, but they literally in anticipation created that law to like stop one of the things that and that's when like we really realized that people were watching. Because like the world was watching for like a very split second. At that time all of the campuses were there was a lot going on campuses throughout the country. And the world was watching for a split second. But in that split second, the state acted so quickly. It was like, whoa, this is real. Like it's not just us dealing with the administrators at the university. Like we're also dealing with the government of Alabama.
Right. Well, I think like along with what you were saying about the floors being like people being infinitely like possible. I think being involved in like protests or like even just trying to create change can show you that so much because you see people are watching. It's like the smallest, or not the smallest thing, but something you think is just like we're just like trying this, and then like you're like y'all just write demands and now they trying to make whole laws to stop what's going on. So you definitely your voice it affects them. It affects a major shift. So okay, so I'm just gonna. Oh well, no, actually, I'm gonna ask. So I know I've been following you for a while, and I see like sometimes you'll post something that isn't necessarily what people would call poetry, but then you'll hashtag like this too is poetry, and I feel like that's really beautiful. And I think I'd like, could you just share where that came from and what that's about?
Yeah, it's funny. It's a conversation that I probably have most often with my friend, and he's gonna be so happy that I said his name, Stephen Willis.
Oh,
An incredible poet, but also an incredible friend. Um, this is poetry too. Is this idea that a lot of times as poets, when we learn other forms of art, or when we learn more, there's like this push to like do more than quote unquote just poetry, as if poetry isn't this amazing limitless like lane. Like a lot of times when you're looking at amazing shows, the writers may not know it, but like, yo, y'all spitting some poetry. Like I watch Pose, and
no,
they have
I
some.
say that.
Oh my goodness! I was like, yo, this is poetry right here. They got like a lot of writers will start out writing poetry and then they'll do something else and they'll be like, well, I'm doing screenwriting now, and it's like you don't even realize the amount of poetry that ends up in your screenwriting. You don't even realize the amount of poetry that ends up in your prose book. You don't even realize. So a lot of times I really want people to understand, like, we got to start thinking about poetry differently. Steven said the other day in a Facebook talk, he said when we think about the way we perform differently, and what we can do in performance, we can change the way that we write as well. And I'm terribly paraphrasing that. But in my regard, the way I think of it is when we change our idea of what poetry is, then we can like really change our ideas of what poetry can be. Because like when you start to open up your mind to what is poetry, that really broadens your horizons for the possibilities of it.
Definitely. And I definitely agree with the like you don't even realize how much poetry interferes with, not interferes, but in inputs itself in the rest of your writing, because definitely like I was always like into writing, and then like recently as I've gotten more into poetry, like when it comes to essays, I'm like, no, I can't turn this in. Like this is not my work. Like this is like it's like I have a level of pride. Like I have a reputation now. I can't just turn in anything. And so it's like I definitely be heavy on the metaphor, heavy on the wordplay. I be trying to be very eloquent now. But so speaking more about poetry, definitely I don't know, if I'm saying the wrong title, I'm sorry, but your Burning Cross poem, it definitely heavily inspired my like Halloween poem, and I just want to know what your inspiration for writing that was. Like,
Yeah,
well,
I had two.
no pun intended.
I had two major inspirations for it. The first is my publisher for my first book, Christopher Michael. He had a poem entitled 16th Street Baptist Church, where he did a persona poem as the church when it was bombed, the church in Birmingham, Alabama specifically, where I live. And at the time I was living in Tuscaloosa when I first heard it, but I'd always been drawn to the city of Birmingham. So I have been wanting to create something similar to that, utilizing historical artifacts to tell history. And one of my favorite places to go is the Birmingham Civil Rights Institute. And I was there at the Institute, and they have a cross that had been burned partially. And that cross, I literally read the little caption that was there, and that's where the poem came from. It's the same exact cross that's sitting in the Civil Rights Institute. When I was planted in the front yard of Reverend, now I forget his name now that I'm like trying to quote it out of context, but the Reverend that they burned it in the front yard, July 29th, 1959, all of that came from the caption. And from then I just kind of studied more about the cross. I wrote the first draft of the poem. It was terrible. I showed it to somebody, and they didn't say it was terrible, but they didn't say it was great, and so I rewrote it. and that's the version that people see now. I just read the first version had a bunch of like, I was trying to like say like the cross was like sizzling. So like you guys will notice I use like cross and I use like hard consonants a lot throughout the poem. The other poem I literally like slithering or something. I was like kissing and stuff, and they were like, yeah, that's not it. And I was like, you're right, this is it. I'm gonna look foolish up here trying to be a cross and sizzling. But yeah, that was my major inspiration.
That's dope. Oh. Okay. Yeah, definitely. See, that just shows like you can really draw. I mean, I guess that's the thing that would draw inspiration, but you can really draw inspiration from anything. It really just depends on you and the mood and the moment and the feeling it gives you. But so actually, I am gonna dig a little into your style because that piece definitely I think is a little different from maybe like what people see on as. I think maybe it does have something to do with the hard consonants and just like there's a certain level of aggression that comes with it. And I just wanted to ask basically like what do you think like how do you curate your style and what do you think like what do you describe your style as?
I would say eccentric and experimental for the most part. At this point, at first when I wrote poems, they were very much, I started writing in 2014, and I was writing, I would call them generic Hotep poems. I was like, I had a crush on this girl, and I was just writing these like Hotep-y poems, and then I kind of like realized like, oh, these are Hotep poems. Like I'm not. As you grow as a person, you no longer are the person you used to be. So I grew, and then I got involved in social justice, and a lot of my poems were about social justice but humor. People would always say like, oh my goodness, how do you say this in a room full of white folks? And I'd be like, well, I've always been in a room full of white folks, so I'm kind of, I make them laugh and then I tell them about themselves. And that's what my poetry was like. And then I just kept trying new things. I love to try out new things. I like to experiment. I am a hopefully will eventually be an approved student of the Slamageddon series of slam. They have a few different things that I've learned of, and I'm like, oh, these are ways that I think of my poetry too. I'm not gonna get too much into that though because that's their thing, and I don't want to mess myself up trying to describe it correctly. They know what I'm talking about if they're in the building. Shouts out to Baltimore because y'all are so far ahead of the curve in terms of performance poetry. But yeah, I'm all about doing weird, wonky, trying out different stuff. I just weird, wonky. That's me. I'm a goofy person too.
Yeah. I can definitely see that about you. I think that's what maybe drew me to your work because in Baltimore we don't have the same styles, but it's a similar performance, and whereas though we all have very different types of writing, but all have some like common denominator. I don't know if it's in the water or what it is, but like I remember I first saw White Heaven and I was like, oh yeah, I like this. I think it's heavy on the sarcasm, it's heavy on the humor, and I was like, I rock with that. Like I definitely rock with like I mean, cause you can like I'm a big lover of comedy and a big lover of humor, and I think that you can definitely get your point across while also instilling that. And I think that's another thing. That's another reason I was very interested in Poetry University because I think it's important to highlight Black joy, but also I think it's also very important to see how Black joy can coincide with healing Black trauma. And so I think that's definitely important. What if, let's say, if you had to describe what and who Jomon Hill is to someone who knew nothing about you, nothing, what would you say?
All right. So if they know nothing about me, I would say, hi, my name is Jahman Hill. I love playing basketball. I will take you on the court. I will take you on the spades table. And I will take my L's with grace. That's literally, that's me. Then poetry would come maybe later. But I really, when I meet people, I'm really big on, I like to make people laugh. I like to be wonky and goofy. And I love basketball, and I'm very competitive. I love basketball. I love spades. I'm ultra competitive, and to a fault. Sometimes I get too competitive. I come from a family that talks crap in love, you be I don't know what the phrase is, jonesing, or if it's running the dozens. I don't know what people call it where, but we be cracking. Yeah, we be cracking on each other, whatever you call it. We be telling jokes on each other all the time. So people kind of got to get used to that with me, because I also, I'm gonna make some jokes about you. Especially the more I love you, the more you gonna hear me tell you about yourself in love, and the more I expect you to tell me about myself.
I rock with that. I'm definitely heavy on that. Okay, so speaking of, first of all, no, I gotta start with this, because I was personally offended at how you could possibly think that Pink Panther is funnier than Austin Powers. It just didn't add up. I didn't get that. I didn't understand.
What?
I didn't.
Okay, I'm gonna say this. They're both bad. They're not. It's like me comparing bananas and pineapples. Like, I don't eat bananas and I do not eat pineapples. Like, I don't. So you're like, which one's better? And I'm like, I guess pineapples. I guess bananas. Whichever one you want to roll with.
Yeah, no, I was hurt. I mean, no disrespect to Steve Martin, but Mike Myers is a
Keep Her by the Dozen. Keep Her by the Dozen is incredible. I be thinking of, like, what incredible movies have I ever seen Mike Myers in? I'm like, none.
You don't like any of the Austin Powers?
I mean, they're alright. They cool. But if I'm thinking of, like, oh man, this is a great movie, I noticed how we just lost a couple of viewers when I
yeah, we can't,
they don't agree with me.
Austin Powers like that.
They dip right out. They're like, you know what? I'm gonna head out. That's hilarious.
We can't trust their comedy anymore. We're confused.
It's alright. I mean, to each their own, though. You know,
I respect it. Yeah, Steve
they're
Martin,
both very campy.
Very, very, very. Well, speaking of movies, so yeah, I see you, and I heard she's trying to get you to watch like 30 Jada Pinkett movies.
Yeah.
So what is up with the movie? Like, what is it? Like, it's like a podcast?
Yeah. So it's a dual. It's an awesome. And now that I'm stand outside and the sun won't be weird, I'll get that good lighting.
Ooh, okay, lighting. Okay, melanin.
I don't know why I park so close to these people. Let's see.
I would be like, who are you?
All right, here we go. Yeah, I'll get a good backdrop of trees. I'll look like I'm in nature. But I think that hold up. Repeat the question. I said nature, forgot.
We were talking about movies. Movies.
Okay, so Mecca. So the way that everything started was, I was watching Life, and I was like, yo, everybody says that this is a classic, but it's not that good. Like, it can be a classic and not be a good movie. A lot of things are classic that are not good. Yes, and Mecca was hurt. We went at it in the comments, and I was like, yo, we should literally do a live where we just talk to each other about classic movies. So we came up with the idea of Movie Review Monday. The catchphrase was like, it's a classic, but is it good? And then she told me about this idea that she had been having for a while, called Cinephiles, this game she created where we create the cinematic universe of an actor or actress. And I was like, oh, that sounds dope. And I was like, this is an amazing game. And she came up with that idea. And then she brought me on as a co-host for the very first one, the Beyonce Cinematic Universe. And Mecca and I are already, like, we have a good chemistry for arguing with each other. I tell Beck all the time, like, yo, we are really good at arguing with each other. You know, like, other people should just watch us argue because we're really good at it. And now I'm like a kind of like official co-host for Cinephiles. I can't wait for the next stuff. She was trying to do Jada Pinkett because, you know, all this stuff recently happened. But I was like, Mecca, like, I got a party to go to and attend this weekend.
I told her, I don't think she's going to watch all of the movies. Your brain is not good enough.
Not enough time in the world.
Life. Like, that's
going
to
take a year. The universe would be so complicated because there's 30 or 40 movies. Like, new actors who are up and coming are great for it. And then actors such as Beyonce, who hasn't been in many films. Some would say due to her music career. Others will be more honest about it. Who hasn't been in as many films.
That's not. She's not. She tries her hardest. I honestly believe she tries. You know, she gave us something in Dreamgirls. That was where she peaked, and then she
gave us something in Dreamgirls. She gave us something.
Just like the documentaries and things of that nature, because otherwise, we're lost. She's lost.
No, not another Lion King. And people are like, "Why
ruined Lion King? It's bad."
He did not ruin Lion King. Donald Glover ruined Lion King. I can't, like, the line that I hear in my head almost every day, is when Donald Glover is fed up with Scar on Pride Rock when he's come back and he says, "It's over, Scar." And I'm like, yo, that's not intimidating at all, man. You did not intimidate me in any way, shape, or form. Like, "It's over, Scar." Like, what is that?
Here's what I don't understand, though, because, like, with voice acting, nobody heard that and was like, try it again. Try it again. I don't think you're giving.
He sounded like, you know when he roars in the original movie for the first time, he's like, "Rawr." That's what he sounded like when he was like, "It's over, Scar."
It's over, Scar.
You're not gonna move a pebble, bro. You're not. Yeah. Ain't nobody afraid.
I don't know. I was really excited when they saw that he was cast. But then I meant, like, yeah, he's not an intimidating figure in general. And I don't know. I feel like there might have been other people who were more suited for the role. But then it's like, it's a cartoon. But at the same time, it's a classic.
There are some people now that I'm like, wow, who would make good, like, young Simbas? Like, babe, watch out because that trunk falls. Gotta save my folks. I have a very bad trunk.
Please don't hurt them.
But I feel like, I'm like, okay, maybe imagine, like, the baby as Simba.
No, that would be a little too. Hey, it's over, Scar.
It's over, Scar.
It's over, Scar. He would.
He would have great voices. Who would be Lil Wayne? It's over, Scar.
Yeah, lying, baby. Yes. No, I don't know. Maybe they should. I feel like they shouldn't have left it alone, though, because when I found out everybody in The Lion King was white, I was very distraught. I was like, "What? In Africa?" Mm-hmm. I said, "Do y'all know where Africa is?" I'm confused. I'm very confused.
It was weird. It was weird because this is a fun point too to bring up, is the push to make things black. For example, The Lion King, there are black voice actors, not named Beyonce, not named Donald. I know the big names pull in, like, more revenue, but you can remake any movie from the 90s and you're gonna pull in major revenue.
Right.
So I feel like that's an opportunity. I feel to employ more like voice actors who are doing excellent work and not just necessarily the big names. Because I feel like a lot of times too when companies there's the performative task of saying black, like Amazon Prime will say Black Lives Matter when you log in and stuff like that. But there's also the performativeness of um, not expanding the pool of black talent that they accept. So it's almost like they're creating their own sort of exceptionalism with their selection process. Like they're not gonna look there. Okay, so we have to have a black person. It's gonna be Beyonce. We're not gonna
Right.
look
It's
at
like
this
it got to
person
be
over
somebody who
here.
benefits
It's
me.
gotta
Like it's
be.
not really about what we're
Mm-hmm.
trying to do or what we're saying
Mm-hmm.
we're trying to do. That's what we're saying a lot of right now, and that's why a lot of people are like trying to hold companies accountable. Like I've seen there's this new little challenge going on, like challenging brands to like, cause that might post a black square and Black Lives Matter, but like they were really challenging them
Mm-hmm.
like how much of your board is black people? How many people do you employ that are black? And then brands was coming out
Mm-hmm.
like, well, it's 58% women, lot of Latinos. Like what we said black? You
Yeah,
mean
they say
queer?
women. They
Black?
mean white women.
White women. That's what yeah, it'll be like um people of color. We said black. Well, okay, 1%. But like it's like, okay, so then maybe that's what you need to change before you change
Mm-hmm.
what you're posting and a hashtag. Like, come on. But going on right now as far as active and I think his phone died. Okay. Just the mattress.
Found out what was going on. They cut me out.
Oh, I was like, I was so confused just now.
I
Okay.
don't know what happened.
Yeah. I mean, actually, I really didn't have that many more questions. Well, I didn't have any more, but I now it's like when you talk to me, I think of things. So, as far as we was talking about artivism earlier, what role do you think that art actually plays in shifting the culture and shifting society?
Um, People aren't going to listen to Dr. King's "I Have a Dream" speech if it was boring, right?
Facts.
People, there are a lot of times there are amazing people doing amazing work behind the scenes that is so necessary. Uh, and a lot of times they don't know how exactly to express those ideas to the public. And art comes in time and time again for that. I know a ton of artists who I've worked with in the college level who go on to be speech writers or go on to do all these other sorts of things that help us find subtle ways to place art in the public sphere. Also, though, art is a very raw place to build emotional connections among people. So poetry gets people to think about things differently. Art in general gets people to think about things differently. Art functions as a catalyst, as a motivator, as an educational tool. Art, and a lot of times people think of art solely as an entertainment sort of thing, but art can fit to persuade people. Art can fit to inform people. And those other two forms of communication, persuasion and information, or informing, art does those things too. Because when you look at it, and I'm not gonna get too much into it. I'm gonna tell people I got a class coming up called
Oh
or
yeah.
a master class series called Poetry University, where I'm gonna really be diving into my pillars of performance art. But there are different ways that we can think of art beyond entertainment that allow us to then approach our art differently as well, because it's so multifaceted, multifunctional.
Right. Okay, so just before we leave off here, I'm gonna ask two final questions. One, what is your favorite piece of work that you have and why? Whether or not I'm gonna say whether or not you it's like public or just something you personally resign, like, relate with the most. And also
Mhm.
just we talked about your main goal for Flourish, but as a person, like, what is your main, like, I know that's kind of hard to think, like, what is my main goal in life, but like
Mhm.
right now, on these, for like whatever you're thinking about right now is your main goal. What would be your main goal as a person?
All right. So, my favorite piece of art that I have created would be the flourish as an idea, as a theory. I wrote a paper for my thesis, academic paper that I paired with my one-man show, in which I talked about the flourish and everything that that's become. That's the thing that I'm probably most proud of. My favorite thing right now is literally the last piece I wrote. It typically is the last piece I wrote. If I was like a specific piece of art, the last piece I wrote that hopefully I'll be able to memorize for this slam tomorrow. And then or Sunday. Thank goodness it's Sunday. Whew, I got an extra day to memorize. All right, but my goal as a human in this world is I think it's about legacy and change. Um, I definitely want to change the United States in a positive way. I hope that my words can change. And when I say the United States, that could be one more. That's literally one more person than I did yesterday. So say I've changed. That way I know that I can. I know that there are hearts that I've changed at this point in my life, and I'm happy about that, but I want at least one more. Like if I could get one more, it's always like one more. And in that, when I'm gone, that's an impact. And then legacy and like leaving something behind for my people. I don't have little children right now, like biological. Um, but I do have like poetry children. I have students. I want to leave something behind for them. And when I have kids, if I have kids, I want to leave something behind for them too.
Of course, of course. Okay, well, I want to thank you for being here with us today, and this, I feel like it was a really, really, really dope time. I enjoyed
Yeah.
myself. I I hope you have your surprise goes well. Somebody earlier commented like, "Well, if he watching this live, the surprise is ruined."
I know I was rolling. I was like, yeah, that is true, but he ain't watching it. He on the road right now.
Oh, okay.
Raymond doing a good job keeping him out of the loop.
That's good. That's good. You're a dope friend. Yeah. Well, I'll be watching out for whatever you have next. Whatever.
Poetry University, y'all, look out for it. Poetry University.
Oh yeah, so yeah, promote that. Put your, like, when I exit, put your like information, like your, I don't know how to speak English now. Your Instagram name and stuff, and where people can find you and stuff in the comments. So yeah, we love self promo.
Yeah, I'm throwing all of that in there as we speak.
All right. Well, thank you for speaking with me, and I wish everything that you deserve. I want you to keep manifesting everything you spoke of today. I know you'll already leave a legacy. You've already started to leave a legacy. I know everything you said that you want to happen will happen. So just live in that and believe that. And I'll talk to you later.
All right, adios. Thank you so much for this opportunity.
Bye. All right, guys. So before I leave off, I'm just gonna read quick in case you missed the shout outs. July 10th will be the next Salt Pepper Catch Up, which is a youth led open mic. It will be, the feature will be youth poet ambassador from 2019, Anaya. I know many of you, Poetic Nonsense, whatever name she going by these days. She's amazing. She's dope. She's my sister. I love her. Come join and watch in for that. And also, if any youth poets are in the building right now, the next DewMore in the House poetry contest will be released next week. Don't forget, there is cash prizes. There is prizes that you can get just for entering. You enter as in like a raffle as soon as you submit. So please, if you like money, which who don't, enter. And I hope you all have a great day, and hope you all manifest the things that you would like to see happen, because I believe in all of you. And as Jomon said earlier, Black people are infinite beings, and we can do whatever we manifest. So bye, you guys. Love you too. Baltimore loves everybody. Baltimore's